Welcome to our program on Kardec Radio.
Hello, dear friends. Welcome to Kardec Radio, 24/7, always nourishing our souls. I am Carol Correa, and we are gathered here tonight to study the divine laws that guide not only our many existences on the earth, but also guide the universe. God, as we learn in Spiritism, is immortal and immutable. As a result, so are God's laws. So the more we understand God's laws, the more we align ourselves with the divine, with the supreme intelligence of the universe. So let us begin, dear friends, with our continuing study of freedom of conscience. And if we are wondering where are such laws written and where can we access them? In the Spirit's book, Kardec asks this very question, and we learn through Kardec's studies and through the superior spirits that communicate through the mediums of Kardec's time, that the laws, the divine laws, the universal divine laws, are written in our conscience. Why? Because God loves us equally, and thus God gives us the same access to divine wisdom. But also in the Spirit's book, Kardec asks, why is it then that we need to have more information given to us about the divine laws if they are written in our own conscience? And the reason the superior spirits say is that often we choose to either push our knowledge aside or ignore that they are there, that we know it. So in order to help us to align ourselves with the divine laws, universal laws, Kardec organized them all in the third part of the Spirit's book. And this is where we are getting our information for our study from, the third part, once again, of the Spirit's book by Allan Kardec. Currently, we are studying the freedom of conscience and under the law of freedom. And tonight, we are going to focus our attention on questions 839 and 840. In case you have the Spirit's book with you and you would like to follow along, these are the questions we shall comment on and study together. To make our study interactive, feel free to type in your comments, your questions right here on the chat, because the more we participate, the more we all learn. And if we don't see your name, please, dear friend, feel embraced as a beautiful child of God. And if you are watching us on demand, please feel free to write us a line if you wish, by either commenting on the chat or writing to us at kardecradio@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. So let us begin. Our first question of tonight is question 839 of the Spirit's book. Kardec asks, are we blameworthy when we offend the beliefs of someone who does not think like us? This is an excellent question, because often we learn through Spiritism that we shall encounter in a given incarnation spirits that are in different levels of understanding and spiritual maturity as we are. We may encounter those who are already more spiritually developed or mature or wise than we are, or we may also find those who are at the same level as us, or those who are still evolving and are going to reach our level, or even, of course, higher than us, because all of us are destined to become pure spirits. So while our destination, as determined by God, is one and the same, and we shall all get there without any exceptions, we know that because the earth, the planet Earth, is a school, a hospital, and a prison for some, we may find spirits that are at different levels of evolution. So it is common on earth still, dear friends, that conflicts emerge because we are not all on the same page. This is why our Master Jesus gave us the solution for conflicts, that of loving one another through the lens of understanding, of forgiveness, of comprehension, of fraternity. This is why we consider in Spiritism Master Jesus to be our model and guide, because though he is the most evolved spirit to ever set foot on the earth, he was able to interact with everyone from all walks of life, giving them the same sense of importance, love, and acceptance. So we are in Spiritism consciously invited to do the same. And because Master Jesus is our model and guide and is inviting us to be fraternal towards one another, are we blameworthy when, as Kardec asks, are we blameworthy when we offend the beliefs of someone who doesn't think like us? And the answer from the spirits could not be more clear. The answer from the spirits is, it shows a lack of charity and goes against freedom of thought. Yes, so now we know that when we offend the beliefs of another before God, we are in fact going against freedom of thought. Hello, Justin. Welcome to Kardec Radio. Yes, Lockley Kardec, as you were saying, asks many questions that can clarify our spirits and minds for immortality. You are right, Justin. Thank you for sharing. So now we know for a fact, dear friends, that when we go against one another beliefs, we are going against freedom of thought. Does that mean that we are not allowed to share our opinion with one another? No, that means that yes, we are allowed to share, but we are being asked to respect one another exactly as we are. For instance, many of us, or some of us, who are spiritists may be very adamant at sharing what we know with our family members. And we may at times even become pushy, saying, how come X person doesn't believe what I do? It would be so much better for them if they did. And this is what the mentor spirits are asking us to avoid. Yes, we can share, but we are being invited to avoid imposing, because it is up to the person to decide when they would like to embrace a certain belief. If we push it because we know that belief is good for us, we may cause that person to feel an aversion towards that belief system. and we may delay their progress. This is why, as co-creators with God, we are being invited to share, but only God can determine when that particular seed of wisdom and knowledge shall sprout and blossom. Only God, dear friends, know the perfect timing of the spring in someone's heart. God is planting daily seeds of hope, seeds of kindness, seeds of compassion, seeds of fraternity, seeds of serenity in our hearts. But it is up only to God to decide when the seeds are ready to sprout. Remember, thinking of the analogy of a seed. There is a time that the seed needs to be in isolation, up to the point where no one can see it. And if we look at the grounds, it seems as though nothing is happening until the seed begins sprouting inch by inch. And that tiny little seed may become later a gigantic oak tree, for example. And who would have imagined that that tiny seed had the potential to become an oak tree? But only God can decide when that moment for that seed to sprout forth shall be. So when we see a flower, for instance, there is no point in telling it, "Hello, dear flower, blossom, please open up because I would like to see you. I need your company. I would like your perfume." No, we may plant the seed of the flower, but only God knows its perfect timing. So let us look at our loved ones, dear friends, our relatives, our co-workers, and see them as beautiful children of God and pray so that the divine seeds inside of them may blossom in God's time. Are we willing to give up our sense of timing, knowing that God knows better than we do? Are we? This is a good exercise for all of us, including ourselves, in detachment. Because sometimes we have in our minds our family members on a given timeline. Oh, by this point, this person has to have reached this milestone. She has to understand life after life. She can't discarnate without knowing what we do. Sometimes we have our loved ones boxed up beautifully onto our expectations, and we are being invited by the spirit mentors to think that we are not the ones to decide on the direction that our loved ones shall follow. Only their conscience and their beloved mentors and God shall make that decision. We can be encouragers, we can be sharers, we can be spreaders of the good news, but we shall not impose. And at times it is quite common for us to see even marriages dissolve because one person wants to believe in this particular belief system, sometimes spiritism, and the other partner doesn't accept it. So how many times we see homes being dissolved completely because the one partner says it's either us or spiritism. In question 839 of the Spirit's book, we just learned that this, before God's law, this behavior is an infraction. Why? Because we are trying to take away someone's freedom of conscience. This is what happened 2,000 years ago, for instance, when Christians were killed because they believed in Christianism. Now, thank goodness, we may not kill the physical body, but we may at times kill someone morally. We may kill their self esteem. We may kill their belief system. We may kill even the ties that we have with them if they do not do X, Y, and Z. So, if we have ever taken this posture in life, there is no need for us to feel guilty right now, but it is a time for us to start anew. The more information we know, the more we can make wiser choices. This is why Jesus recommended Spiritists, Christians, instruct yourselves. So now that we are instructing ourselves, all of us, ourselves included, can make wiser choices. Now we know that before God's laws, we are being invited to respect one another's beliefs. Let us now move, dear friends, to question 840. Question 840 is the following. Kardec asks, does it go against freedom of conscience to obstruct beliefs that might disturb society? Kardec asks, the superior spirits, we mean? Answer. Acts may be restrained, but inner beliefs are untouchable. Very good observation from the mentor spirits. We are very grateful to them because they are straight to the point. They tell us the truth with kindness. And if we know the truth, we can free ourselves from misconceptions. So thank you to the mentor spirits. And now we learn that even if we believe that a certain behavior or belief system may be pernicious to society, we may try to restrict it physically, but we cannot restrict it in the mind, because in the mind we are free to believe as we wish. Let us think back to Christianity 2,000 years ago. We just mentioned that Christians were being physically killed, and the Romans at the time taught that by physically killing the bodies of the Christians, Christianity as a belief system, which they thought was revolutionary and obstructing society, would die down. But the very opposite happened. The same occurred, dear friends, in Kardec's time. There were burning of the books that Kardec compiled, codified for us in his beautiful life transformative research. There were times when the books were burned because there was the erroneous belief that one, Spiritism was a cult that was obstructing society, and two, if the books were burned, Spiritism would disappear. And we know what happened. Of course, Spiritism didn't disappear because it comes from on high, and trying to stop any belief with physical measures alone doesn't work, because the minds are free to still think and express themselves. So if we watch the movie Kardec on Netflix, we can see exactly how the burning of the books that Kardec published actually caused the Spiritist science and understanding of life to gain even more room and space in the French society of the time. So what we know now more than ever, especially through this answer here, that whatever comes from God shall not be restricted with physical actions, that the mind is always free to express itself. And what a gift! Right, dear friends, because we are eternal and we are all children of God. So, of course, God, in her kindness and love, shall give us liberty to think and to make choices as we think. Right, dear friends? So, what a blessing to have been given by God freedom of conscience. The question for us that we can meditate upon based on the questions we read are the following. Have we been trying to obstruct someone from practicing their beliefs, especially if those beliefs of any sort are different from ours? Question number 2. Do we try to impose what we believe is righteous onto others? We learn tonight that trying to obstruct someone from practicing their beliefs or holding their beliefs, and also trying to obstruct someone from practicing their beliefs, goes against the law of freedom, specifically freedom of conscience. And we can think of another example, more contemporary example for us to discuss. The case of Malala, for example, a very beautiful young woman who has been a Nobel Prize recipient. She wanted to go to school, but in her country, young women were not allowed to be educated. She decided to stand up for her right, the belief that she held in the power of education. And as she walked to the school with the support of her father, she almost was physically murdered. What did that do? Did that stop her from pushing forward? No. Since then, she has written a book, been the recipient of the Nobel Peace Prize, and she recently graduated from Oxford University as she has become an advocate for the rights of young women to have access to education. So, beautiful example, dear friends, on how sometimes the pressure of an entire society in order to restrict someone's ability, freedom to express themselves does not work, because it goes against God's law for us to try to suppress any of our brothers and sisters. So let us take that to heart as we ourselves value the gift of freedom of conscience, and let us make this week, dear friends, a conscious effort to respect one another's freedom of conscience as well. One other exercise that we can do to do so, dear friends, is excuse us, is to think of something positive that someone else's beliefs may hold. So instead of automatically criticizing, even only in our thoughts, a particular set of beliefs, we look for something positive in that belief system. And we try to not necessarily embrace a different belief system, but understand why it may be valuable to others. By practicing understanding, we make an effort to spend more time developing empathy and compassion and a sense of respect, as instead of criticizing or trying to smash those who are not like us. We are not here to smash one another, but rather, according to our model and guide, we are here to embrace one another. Right, Justin? Thank you. Yes, this is a well-timed study, Justin, for all of us as we are faced with many challenging circumstances around the world currently, and sometimes our moods get heated up, we get worked up, so to speak, and we may accidentally disrespect one another with a line of thought or with a word or with a particular action. And we are being invited to be understanding and seek for the good in that person, not meaning that we are not allowed to say what we believe, but meaning that we are being invited to not impose our beliefs upon others. Beautiful exercise on fraternity and respect as our Master Jesus modeled it to us. So let us take these lessons to our hearts and souls and minds and allow our spirit mentors to continue to inspire us tonight so we learn many more new ways to respect one another fraternally, particularly those who may not and quite often do not think the same way that we do, or rather, are not on the same wavelength as we are. We are being invited by the spirit mentors of Kardec Radio not to give up on our beliefs, but rather to practice understanding others' beliefs as well in the same way that we would like to be understood. So beautiful exercises on understanding for all of us, dear friends. Thank you so much for the gift of your presence. We wish you a blessed night and we hope to see you again right here on Kardec Radio, which is always 24/7 nourishing our souls. Many blessings.